have this to say to the modern young girl, gentlemen. Be free. Express yourself. Take your life in your own hands and mold it. The world will try to rob you of your freedom, but fight for it. It's all you have to live for.
Just relax.
That's all for the modern girl, gentlemen. Whatever.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to take you all on a flip, my first ever flip of this dress that I got at Goodwill for $8.99. And now let's jump into the inspiration behind the look that I came up with. Here we go. Claire McCardell was one of the most influential women's designers of the 20th century, and really just one of the most influential women's designers ever. If you've ever worn workout clothes or athleisure wear, you have her to thank. The hooded sweatshirt? Claire McCardell. Capsule wardrobe? Claire McCardell, though it didn't take off when she suggested having pieces to mix and match in the 30s, and it took another 50 plus years when Donna Karan introduced the concept in the 80s, but whatever. Also, the ballet flat, Claire McCardell. Seriously, this woman was amazing and contributed so much to how we dress every day, and she's one of the most famous designers you and I had never heard of. McCardell was best known for her contribution to the American look. She was inspired by the active lifestyle of American women. Known for casual sportswear, shirtwaist dresses, and wool jersey sheaths, as well as practical leisure clothing and swimwear, which she liked to refer to as play clothes. I love that. McCardell designed for working women who wanted stylish, well-made clothing in washable fabrics that were easily cared for. One of my favorite quotes of McCardell is from a 1955 Sports Illustrated, Sports Illustrated, when she said, "Sports clothes changed our lives because they changed our thinking about clothes. Perhaps they, more than anything else, made us independent women. In the days of dependent women, fainting women, delicate flowers, laced to breathless beauty, a girl couldn't cross the street without help. Her mission in life was to look beautiful and seductive while the men took care of the world's problems. Today, women can share the problems and possibly help with them because of their newfound freedom." McCardell sadly passed away from cancer in the late 1950s at the top of her career, but not before leaving her timeless designs and mark on fashion history. Thank you, Claire McCardell. Next in inspiration, Olivia de Havilland. I've been researching Olivia for my Instagram series, Highlights of Hollywood Heroines, and came across this photo of her in an adorable playsuit. I stored it away in my head for style inspiration, and it quickly came back to me when I decided to flip this dress. So, brief background, Olivia was an actress who started her career during the 1930s and the golden age of Hollywood, and her career stretched into the 1980s. Most people know her for her role as Melanie in Gone with the Wind, but this woman left behind a fearsome legacy when she passed away last summer at the age of 104. Back in the day, actors were contracted to a studio usually for multiple years, and at maximum 7 years. Studios could put an actor in whatever role they wanted them to, whether it was an appealing role or not. If actors refused the role, they were put on suspension. This meant they could not partake in any other films or be paid for any other work during the filming time of the picture which he or she had refused. This also meant the suspension time was added on to the end of their contract. In Olivia's time at Warner's, she did her fair share of refusals. She detested their control to put her in whatever role they chose, and that, more often than not, she was given a one-dimensional arm candy ingenue role with nothing more to do except gaze up at the leading man sweetly. So in 1943, Olivia's 7-year contract with Warner Brothers came to an end, or so she thought. She was notified by Warner's that through a loophole, the suspension clause, all those suspensions she had been put on now added up and meant she still had 6 months of contract owed to the studio. In California, 7-year contracts were the maximum length that studios could assign someone, so the fact that they were adding on 6 months was illegal. Even worse, it was believed that studio systems purposefully assigned roles to actors they knew the actors would refuse so that the studio could add time on to their contract, therefore keeping them on longer. Furious by this development and more than done with Warner Brothers at this point, Olivia refused and instead sued and won. Warner Brothers, of course, appealed and Livy won again. They appealed again and she won again. All the while Warner Brothers was fighting the ruling in courts, Livy spent her time and efforts elsewhere. As a result of her win, Livy was blacklisted for a couple years from movies as the other studio systems, of course, sided with Warner Brothers. What did she do with her time? She went and visited wounded soldiers in hospitals across the country, as well as troops in the South Pacific. In an interview later on in life, Livy said about the experience, "There really wasn't any doubt about the right decision for me to take. One of the nice things I thought was, if I do win, other actors feeling frustration such as I feel will not have to endure that." The ruling in favor of Olivia set a new precedent in the film industry and gave some autonomy back to actors. Her court win had immediate effects and film actors were elated and relieved. Livy's battle marked the beginning of the end of the studio system's hold on actors. The de Havilland Law, as it is known, continues to this day. And the last piece of inspiration, the Beverly Hills Hotel. Why is that? Well, the Beverly Hills Hotel is iconic for its design, particularly the palm leaf wallpaper. The palm leaf wallpaper used throughout. Even if you haven't been to the hotel, me, and have no chance of staying there anytime soon, me, you still have seen it and know of it, me. When I saw the dress in Goodwill, the wallpaper in the Beverly Hills Hotel immediately came to mind, and that's why I bought it, even though I had no idea what I was going to do with it. So with Claire McCardle, Olivia de Havilland, and the Beverly Hills Hotel in mind, I started to play. So I started out by putting the dress on and looking in the mirror and taking pins and finding the line. Basically, I am just looking and adjusting the pins and putting them in exactly where I want them to be to create the new line on what will be the new bodice. And it's just a little bit of trial and error here as I make those adjustments. I'd also just like to say thank goodness for voiceovers, because if you all had to listen to the random things that I say as I'm going through this process of figuring out the new lines, and there's just a lot of talking to myself going on and a lot of phrases in my mind that remind me of songs, and then I end up singing songs because of a line that I had just said. So yeah, I'll throw in a little snippet of what I'm talking about. I think I finished pinning and I said to myself, okay, it's possible. And then I launched into Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella. So I've got a clip of that, but I put it at the Woodland Creatures level so that it's a little bit more entertaining for your ears to listen to. So enjoy. So once I figured out the basic line that I wanted on the bodice, I laid the dress out, I flattened it, and then I started to cut at what I thought would be a good point for the top to be. And then I flipped it over. I checked out the pins that I had put in while looking at the mirror, and here is a picture that I have been using for reference to create the line that I wanted on the side seam of the side of the bodice. So I'm just making some slight adjustments while looking at that, and also referencing this lovely Claire McCardle 1944 design, where you can also see that nice steep side cut where it has an open back but the front is pretty much covered. And then there's just more fussing that happens with the line, just trying to get it exactly how I want it to be. And then once I felt like it was where I wanted it to be, it was time to match up the other side and see if I could pin it in a way that it matched the side I just pinned. making sure that nothing is lopsided or uneven, and feeling my way, literally feeling through with the pins and matching them up the best that I can. Now that I have decided on the line that I wanted for the side seams, I am marking in where I'm going to cut, and then the pieces that I take off are going to be used to make the straps in a moment. So there we are. So here I am cutting and taking the straps, or what will be the straps, and then matching it up to the other piece that I just cut off of the back and getting the second piece. So now that I have those are going to turn into the halter straps. Ta-da! So once I had the new halter straps, I am marking the sew line and turning it so that the wrong sides are facing each other. And then eventually I'll sew, and then I will leave one end open so that I can flip it inside out so that the right side is facing out. And of course you can't forget pins. So I am now pinning to make sure that the fabric doesn't move when I go to take it over and sew it. Now that the new halter straps have been made, I am just flipping them out now so that the right side is out and the wrong side is now facing in. So in this shot, I don't know yet that everything I'm prepping right now is actually incorrect. I am about to sew in the halter straps so that they are flipping outwards instead of flipping inwards towards my neck, and everything that you're seeing right now is going to have to be undone and fixed, but it did get fixed. Okay, we have to do a little adjustment, but here we have the new halter, and I need to top stitch this down and this, because as you can see, the inside rolls out, so I don't want that. All right. Not gonna fuss too much though. Once the halter straps were sewn on, I went ahead and did a fitting to check to see how it felt, and they looked great, but I noticed from the side that the neckline was now gaping open, and so I needed to fix that by putting in some pleats. So that is what I am doing here. There's the pins, and then after I sewed those down, I had two nice pleats on the side of the neck, just like that. In order for me to get the line that I wanted on the side seams, I had to do a little bit of seam ripping to take out some of the old seam. And so once I was able to do that, I was repinning the lining to the outer fabric so that they all matched up and I could officially keep the line that I wanted. And now I'm sewing it down so that the bodice will have that new line and everything will be connected. And then it was time to press things. I should have done it earlier, oops, but it got done. So here I am just checking and pressing the seams and feeling very pleased with how things were going. After that, it was time to tackle the zipper. So the zipper was originally at the top of the dress, but I wanted to repurpose it and use it in the skirt. So I cut the zipper to the length that I wanted it to be, and now I am sewing off the new end of the zipper so that the zipper will stop in the place that I want it to and not just completely unzipped. With the zipper prepped, it was time to tackle the rest of the skirt. So I put in some pleats at the front. I put 2 on each side and am getting ready to baste those down before I sew them down. There was still a lot of fabric on the back side of the skirt, so I ended up putting in 2 darts on each side of the back of the skirt as well. So we ended up having 2 pleats on each side of the skirt in the front, and then 2 darts on the back side of the skirt. And then later on, I also used the new waistband to sort of gather and pull a little bit more, just so that I could get the snug fit, comfortable feeling that I was going for. The back seam of the new skirt needed to be ripped open so that I could put the zipper in. So here I am ripping out that back seam, and then I also went ahead and I took in some additional inches there as well, so that helped compensate for the shape and making it the shape that I wanted the skirt to be. And then it was time to sew in that new back center seam, and then I started to get the zipper ready as well so that I could then line it up and get it into place on that back center seam. With the zipper separated from the old fabric that it was attached to, I was now ready to put it onto its new place on the skirt. So I'm pinning it into place before I go over to the machine, and I start to baste it down before I do the proper sewing down. Went okay ish. There's something so satisfying about revealing a zipper. When you feel good about it, that is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unzip this, go back to my sewing machine, sew up this side, and sew up this side, and we'll have a zipper. Woohoo! And this is the seamstress version of when your mom tried to clean you up as a kid by wiping down the flyaways from your face or cleaning dirt off of your face. Here I am taking all of the flyaways, all of those random threads, and cutting them so that it looks a little more presentable, just like your mom used to do before you went somewhere and wanted to make sure that you looked extra nice and, you know, basically used her spit to clean you up. Anyone else? No, just me. Time to press and sew the raw edge of the top. There's not a scrap to spare here. And so I quickly realized that with as little material as I had left towards the end, there was a very small margin of error available to me for any mistakes. And that just kept popping in my head throughout the remaining time putting together the waist of the skirt. And here's the finished skirt. So I was not exaggerating when I said there was very little scrap fabric to go around. In fact, there was no scrap. So when I was sewing the back waistline of the skirt, I didn't even want to cut the rest of the scraps. So I just sewed and hoped that if I needed to go back and rip something out, I would have enough. And so I had these two flaps at the end of the skirt where the zipper meets in the center of the back of the skirt, and I ended up liking it, and I decided that I was just going to sew them close and then turn them into a little tie. So that's what you see there at the top of the skirt. There's a little bow that ties in the back and gives a nice secure feeling to the skirt as well. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. And here is the halter top. So I ended up just sewing the bottom back where I had planned to have another tie, but again, I just didn't have enough scrap left over to do that. And the material was stretchy enough that I was able to just sew the bottom part of the back and not worry about it. So it ties at the top and you just stretch the bottom attachment over your head and it fits snug as a bug in a rug. Thanks for joining me on my first ever YouTube video, and thanks for joining me on this journey of my first flip as well. I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye!